Hey, brand builder, Rory Vaden here. Thank you so much for tuning in to listen to this interview. We are so excited to bring you this information and wanted to let you know that, hey, there's no sales pitch coming from anything that we do. This is all our value add to you and the community. However, if you are somebody who is looking for specific strategies on how to build and monetize your personal brand, we would love to talk to you. And we offer a free call to everyone that's interested in getting to know us and is willing to give us a chance to get to know them and share a little bit about what we do. So if you're interested in taking us up on a free strategy call, you can do that at brandbuildersgroup.com/summit call. brandbuildersgroup.com/summit call. Hope to talk to you soon. On with the show.
It is my honor and distinct pleasure and privilege to introduce you to somebody who is really interesting. I admire this guy as a mentor, also value his friendship. But in addition to all that, this is someone that I have actually learned so much from in terms of how to run a great business. So John DiJulius is his name. And it's hard for me to refer anyone else in the customer service or customer experience space. It's like, this is the man that I learned it from, that I follow. He's written all the books on the subject, several books on customer service, customer experience, secret service, what's the secret, customer service revolution. He hosts every year the Customer Service Revolution Conference. I've spoken there twice. AJ has spoken there. And John is just an amazing guy who has totally dominated a vertical, is a real expert. And I asked him to just come and share the true story of how he built his personal brand in such a dedicated, consistent way. And so here he is, John DiJulius. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Roy. It is such an honor to be here. And the best and only piece I care about in that introduction is that our friendship. That means the world to me.
Yeah, you really do live that, brother, and the relationships, and I've always admired that about you, and I've looked up to you, and I think, when I think about your business, you're a great example of one of the things that we talk about, Brand Builders Group. It's just, breaking through the wall by becoming known for one thing, and in your space, it's just like you're one of only a few people really that are even at that top tier, top caliber. Tell us a little bit about how you got started, because you used to be truly like tell us about spas, and then tell us like, how did you move into where you were teaching customer service?
Yeah. All on accident. I wish I could tell you I had this great plan, and I like sharing this even with kids, kids being, college age, just because, I feel like the kids of today have so much pressure on them to figure out what they have to be. And I think it's crazy for a 21-year-old to know what he wants to do for the next, 50 years. And so when I graduated from college, first I was a horrible student, all the way through, really bad, flunked out of college, but eventually went back and finished. I was working at UPS, and I was driving a truck, and only because it was significantly better pay than anything I can get back in the late 80s. I was making $45,000 as a driver, which might as well been $1 million to me. And coming out with the marketing degree, it was like 18 to 22,000. So my plan was, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, and I was going to own my own business. So I wanted to put as much away as I can for the next 5 years as a UPS driver, then quit and open and I couldn't think of anything, what that would look like. There was only, two things I was passionate about: owning my own business and sports. And so the only thing I could put two and two together was I was going to open a sporting goods store. Like, that's really, the only, logic I can come up with. And thank God I didn't end up doing that. But meet my future wife. We get married. She's this fantastic hairdresser. And, the challenge with, in the late 80s, early 90s was the hair salons and hairdressers weren't thought of as a professional place. A lot of great hairdressers quit. While they loved it, they had to get real jobs, right? Jobs that paid vacation and benefits and 401ks and all training. And so, good hairdressers would be quitting. Her friends at work would be quitting. And so, that's where we got the idea. Let's open a salon that offered something different to customers. We didn't want to be known as the best customer service hair salon. We wanted to be, anywhere, you went that day paled in comparison, right? Kind of like, when you take your kids to Disney, every business you visit after that is just disappointing because Disney just blew your mind in the way they take care of it. So take care of employees and then give back to the community. And so my initial plan was if that took off, I could quit this golden handcuff job that I had at UPS and start my own business. Well, as luck, fate would have it, we almost went out of business the first 4 weeks. It was my wife and 3 of her closest friends from cosmetology school, for several years earlier. And, our business plan was really sophisticated back then. It was made up of 3 or 4 cocktail napkins that when we'd be out at a bar and talking about opening the salon, we'd say, oh yeah, write that down. And we literally, I have them framed. Treat customers really well and treat employees really well. But we were passionate about it. But the 3 others didn't want anything to do with that. So it was back to my wife. We were open a month. I really thought we were going to go out of business. But that's where I jumped in at full time, a little bit more kicking and screaming because I didn't want to be in the industry initially. And then between her artistic and my customer service, we just started blowing the doors off. And so we had a 900 square foot salon and it knocked down, the doors and expanded it 1,200 to 2,000. And then we vacated, built, one of the largest in the countries. And then, have opened several more. So 27 years later, still have them, but it's not what I do. I don't have anything to do with the day.
How many are there? How many you still have?
4.
Okay. So you still have these. And then at some point, you go, okay, I want to move and I want to start teaching this. Did somebody ask you, or did you say, was it like a definitive, like I want to go teach customer experience?
No, I wish I could say, Rory, I had this plan, and just like going into the salon industry, kicking and screaming, I didn't want to at first. I was so glad I did because we saw the opportunity, while there was a salon at every corner, none of them operated at a high level. Today is a different story, but back then, professionalism, all that, customer service. So we started growing really, really fast, making a lot of noise in Cleveland, and they're all in Cleveland, and in the salon industry. So now it's the mid 90s. We've opened up 3-4 years, and people in Cleveland in the salon industry would ask if I'd speak because they were like, what are you guys doing here? You're growing really fast. Your reputation's excellent for customer service. So at first, and probably like you, like a lot of people, total accent. I was flattered, that someone wanted to hear my story. When I did it locally, I was like, this is cool because now I could promote the salons to the local chamber of commerce or whoever at the time was asking me. And then what happened was, never thought it would, materialize to anything. 2 or 3 people come up to me after speaking and say, do you do this for companies? And I kind of like, yeah. And like, what do you charge? And I'm like, charge for what? Like, I didn't know that there was, you could do this. So, on the fly, I'm like, $250. And, they were, shocked, but that's all. And I'm like, oh God, I should have asked for more. So, but every time I spoke, 2 or 3 leads came from that. And so, and so I was a salon owner that spoke a little bit. And then in 2002, I wrote my first book, Secret Service. So, again, I know you went through this. When I started getting at bigger conventions, I was the breakout speaker in the basement. They had a map and a flashlight to find, and that's where I belonged. But you had the world beaters, Michael Gerber, Tom Peters, Jim Gilmore on main stage. and I'd watch them and I'd be like, holy cow. So I'd wait in line with all the 500 attendees. When I'd finally get up there, I'd say, hi, I'm John. I'm a speaker too. And you know, they were all so generous and said, slow down. And they gave me their number or, you know, they probably didn't even have email, but they said, you know, hey, I'd be happy to help you. And I couldn't believe how generous they were. So, you know, I reach out and they say, here's what you got to do. You know, you got to create a website, you got to get a demo, you got to write a book. And, you know, so I listened to them. And, you know, so the first book comes out end of 2002, Secret Service. And overnight, basically that in the next 12 months, it took me from a salon owner that spoke to a speaker that owned salons. And then since, you know, 2003, I haven't been active in the salons. And then, you know, the speaking consulting business just exploded from that.
So that's interesting. So you started as a speaker. Now today, your primary business model, like if you have to go like, you know, you've got Customer Service Revolution, the conference, you've got keynote fees, you've got book sales, you've got consulting, you've got other trainers. What is like, where does most of the revenue come from today?
Our revenue streams, number one, probably at 50, a little bit more than 50 is customer service consulting, you know, working with Starbucks and Lexus and Price Waterhouse and, you know, all those great companies, the Chick-fil-A's of the world. And we have our consultants, and that's just ongoing in there every month, every quarter. The second revenue stream is, you know, keynotes, and I primarily do that, but that's where we get our leads from for our consulting. And then, you know, the Customer Service Revolution Conference. And then we also have the Customer Experience Executive Academy, which is something that people come to Cleveland for a whole year. They come 4 times a year, and you know, it's like a master's degree in customer experience.
Interesting. So they come for 4 times a year. Like how long do they come? 3
days, January, April, July, October. So next week literally is 2020 class starts. So it's sold out. And so now you know, if you want to take the next one, you have to wait till January 2021 because you can't come midstream. It builds upon. We do have an online version, but the physical class, it's, you know, 20 to 25 of the top chief experience officers from all over, you know, they get together and learn our methodology.
Man, so that is awesome. So then how did those develop from there? Like, so you started speaking, and then speaking, did that just lead into consulting? Is that kind of like?
Yeah. So first, you know, you kind of brought it up earlier. I live by this quote, and I've heard it attributed to Jerry Garcia, but I'm not sure if he's the originator. But I love this quote. It's not enough to be considered the best at what you do. You want to be considered the only one that does what you do. So like, I love that. Yeah. And that's why we just go narrow and deep, and all we do is customer experience, and we eat, sleep, and drink. And if someone calls up for sales training or, you know, branding, you know, Rory Vaden. If someone calls us up for leadership, you know, the John Maxwells of the world. We say no to more opportunities than we say yes to, just because, you know, we just want to eat, sleep, and drink one area, and you know, hopefully be the smartest person on the planet doing that. So I started speaking, stumbled into some right place, right time, like, you know, shared the stage with Tom Peters, and that one speaking opportunity, like in 2004, I count over $1 million of gigs that have come from it directly, or you know, I still,
wow,
you know,
how did that happen?
You know, Chick-fil-A was in the audience, Starbucks was in the audience, Hallmark Cards was in the audience. So it was a great audience. But on top of that, you know, the Restaurant Association was in the audience. And so they were all there to see Tom Peters. Thank God they didn't know who John DiJulius was. But I got so many leads, and like years later, like, you know, everyone I know has like kind of come, you know, through that. So what ended up happening is I started getting hired by really good companies. It was funny. only great companies hired me. It was like, the Ritz-Carlton doesn't need me. The Chick-fil-A doesn't need me. Starbucks doesn't need me. But those are the ones that are obsessed and are constantly investing. So I was learning probably more than I was teaching, but I got to go in there and see behind the scenes. And so what happened from 2003 to 2008 is working with all these world-class brands. I saw that there was a methodology that they all kind of aspired to. And when my second book, What's the Secret, came out, that was the whole methodology of that I discovered from studying and working with. There was 10 commandments of world-class customer experience, the service vision statement, world-class internal culture, non-negotiable standards, all those things. And then when that came out, that, on it, not knowing, it catapulted us into a consulting company, because now everyone wanted us to come in and train them on those 10 commandments, which, can take 5 years if we go through everything the right way.
Yeah. So there's you created this body of work, and then once people saw the body of work, they were like, we need help actually implementing it.
Right. Yeah.
We say a lot of Brand Builders Group that people don't pay for information, they pay for organization and application. And so it's like the information you put in the book, but what they really want is to come in and teach us, which is so still today, that is your number one revenue. That's your number one revenue stream.
Yeah. I mean, you know what it was like when we were just keynote speakers, you get scared, it'd be maybe, fall, and you'd look at the next year and say, oh my God, I only have 3 keynotes booked. Oh my God, we're gonna have to sell the house. We're gonna have to, give away our kids and stuff. And then they eventually, all come, but keynotes are scary and last minute. We're consulting, I already know, because they could be 1 year, 2 year, 3 year contracts. What we have, if nothing else happens, we have these contracts signed. And so, they have annuities that, you can, at least forecast and bank on and expand the corporate office without, being worried that the phone won't ring tomorrow.
So if somebody wanted to go into the consulting space, because I feel that's something you've done consistently for a lot of years for top brands, you have penetrated a vertical. Do you think, is speaking the number one place that those leads really come from, or is it more books, or is there somewhere else? Do you think you could do it without one of those two, or do you really got to have both?
I don't. I remember someone told me, and again, I'm sure you heard the same advice, when I was speaking to those, gurus on main stage trying to figure out if this was really a career I could go into. They told me, they said, listen, if me and you, Rory, spoke on the exact same topic, any topic, right? Diet, sales, yoga, meditation, doesn't matter. And Rory could be 10 times smarter at it, 10 times better of a presenter, have 10 times better material. But if I'm the author, right, I will get more booked at a higher price. And someone else said this one time to me, and it's so true. In the speaking consulting industry, having the title after your name, author, is like having the credentials of MD. May not be fair, but it just puts you on an unfair playing field, advantage wise, that wow, this guy is, or woman is an author. She's a subject matter expert, and it just makes the phone ring. So that and the speaking, you get right in front of the right audiences with entrepreneurs, executives, and all that. And when you've spoken for me, at my conference, all my best clients, all used you because, and what's great, and I tell anybody, you never sold anything from stage. You were just up there sharing great content. And like you said, they wanted you to come in and share it with their franchisees, their employees, and teach them how to implement and execute it, because they knew they couldn't do it on their own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if you were going to do it today, if you had to start all over, and I think, consulting is interesting because it provides this more steady stream of income. It's a good B2B model. I feel like you don't hear as much about consulting. A lot of our clients, you hear all the time about having a video course or a membership site or maybe a mastermind or doing your own public events. But, that idea of getting companies who have budgets to for training and to do this kind of stuff. It's like there's big dollars to be made there. Companies always need training. If you were going to do it today from scratch, would you do it the same way, or is there something that you think that you would go about it differently to like build your consulting business?
I think the first place I'd start and is writing. I tell every up and coming speaker, you got to write. You got to write consistently. And I hated writing. I hate having to sit down. I do it every Sunday morning and carve out 2 hours for my weekly blog, right? But as you know, and people taught me, writing makes you a better speaker. Things that may take us 3, 4, 5 sentences to say, when you write it out, you say it in a sentence better than the 4 or 5 sentences so eventually when you go to speak it, you're saying it cleaner and crisper. It's forcing you to research because you're not going to have enough in your head or enough experiences. So you got to see, you got to be reading articles on your expertise and bringing them in, and you're writing about them and justifying, your philosophies by what's happening in the marketplace. And, all of a sudden, and then you start creating followers, people who like your topic. And, people start, going to your website, buying, downloading, inquiring about your speaking. And then lo and behold, after, a year or two, you probably have the good foundation of a book. So, while sometimes it's the least favorite of all the things I do, I think it's the most beneficial thing I do because it makes me a better speaker. It makes me more articulate. It forces me to constantly be researching to make sure I have the latest and greatest, and I'm building up a following.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love
one thing you said about, you don't hear a lot about consulting. And I think, there's a couple reasons why. I think, a lot of people that may go into speaking want to, love, the one-man show, and consulting takes more than that. So I've always loved teams. I know you've always loved teams. My hair salon, has 135 employees, layers of man. I like that. I've always liked to delegate and, make it someone else's responsibility. And I enjoy that. And so the same thing, the DiJulius group has 15 employees and different. I like that. I like creating that. That's not for everyone. You gotta, it's hard to be a one-man consulting firm to be doing that. I'm sure there are people out there, but if you want to grow a consulting practice, you got to be good at growing people.
Yeah. Yeah. And going back to what you're saying about the book, I think people think of the reason you need to write a book is for credibility, but I don't think it's as obvious what you just said about it forces you to be a better communicator. And I honestly never even really, thought about that so clearly until you just said it. And somebody at our event last week, so we had a phase 1 event last week, and this gentleman, Wade's coming through the event. And he said to me, and it was a compliment that was so simple, but I loved it so much. He said, "Rory, you are such an efficient communicator." And I was like, I love that compliment. And as you talk this out, John, I'm going, yeah, that happens from writing. Like it forces you to be
concise and articulate. And you're right. I mean, when there's not a wasted word on stage, but that's because you've harnessed it, written about it, spoke on it. And, every time, even someone that's done as many presentations as me and you, as soon as I get off, I'm going to go to that presentation and tweak it a little. There's a nuance that, it might be that this slide should go before that slide or, after it, but there's also a nuance. The way I said it, there's a better way to say it.
Yeah, it's funny because that's speaking to that phase 1 event. Now Brand Builders Group is like a whole new batch of content for us. We've got these 9 different 2-day experiences, and so the phase 1 is the one we've taught the most. We've probably done, I would say, 8 of them, and even now I'm still like, right. Oh, we got to tweak that. We got to tweak that. We got to add that to the PowerPoint.
It's tight, right? It's good. And, there's pros and cons, right? We've been doing our presentation for, 2-3 years. We can, do it in our sleep. We know it's good. but also, with a new book coming out, or that came out, that's exciting because now you have a whole new presentation, but you're kind of giving birth to it again because, it's choppy at first, but
Yeah.
the passion of a new material, like brand builders and the phases, that outweighs the, lack of conciseness. But the more you do it, the cleaner it becomes, and you're hitting it.
Yeah, it's funny, and I remember this. I'm recalling right now that the first time I saw you speak was at your summit. I was there as one of the speakers, and I remember being blown away. Like when you talked, I was like, "That was incredible! Like that was the best I've ever seen in customer service." And I told you that, and you're like, "Oh, Rory, that's like my C- material because these are like all your best clients." And I was like, "Wow." And it's because you spent years like really, really diving deep in this space. I think that's super powerful, and I don't necessarily think people equate the importance of the book to a consulting practice, and the book to not just credibility, but forcing you to codify your own ideas and thoughts. It makes you a better communicator, period.
Right. And listen, no one probably has or should be writing a book of just information out of their head. So they got to do a lot of research, and thank God we have the internet today and work with our clients. But, that's where you're compiling all this, which is making you smarter, which is, adding your credibility. But it also sometimes will make you wrong. You'll be like, oh, my premise here, it is not right. And that's, more powerful than, the stuff you write on. That's what makes you an expert. And, that's why I've never, and there's two schools of thought, and neither one is wrong. But like, when I was growing up, in the fall, my friends who were decent athletes, they'd play football. In the winter, they'd play basketball or wrestle. And in the spring, they'd play baseball. Well, me, in the fall, I had to practice baseball. And in the winter, I had to practice baseball in order for me to make the baseball team in the spring, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so I couldn't be, and it's the same thing with this. I don't want, if I said, someone call up and say, can you do a social media presentation? Yeah. And then hang up and then try to put it together from, material. I don't want to, I want to eat, sleep, and drink my material, one trick pony, and be as deep and have the confidence that, my clients can't find someone that's smarter than me, and I also think it hurts my credibility if they, are seeing that John's, writing about or talking about, other topics. Not saying it works for other people. It's just not my DNA to be wide.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I want to ask you one last question about that in terms of like being the only choice. So before we do that, if anybody is listening that wants to kind of connect with you or, see what you're up to, where should they go to find you and hook up?
Yeah. TheDiJuliusGroup.com, DiJulius group.com. And you can always get a hold of me at John@TheDiJuliusGroup.com. Yeah.
So the last little thing I wanted to have you talk about is one of my favorite quotes from you is it's like being so good that make the price irrelevant. Making price irrelevant. Can you talk about what that quote means and how do you think that applies to personal brands and like speakers, consultants? Because you've kind of been touching on it.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we say our value proposition is. If companies hire us, we're going to make them so good that price becomes irrelevant. Now, what that doesn't mean is you can double your fees or even raise them 25% and not lose existing or potential customers. What it does mean is based on the experience your brand gives your customers at every touch point. They have no idea what your competition charges. So, listen, we're all price sensitive, and I've been the idiot that's driven 3 extra miles to say 50 cents on something, not realizing I just lost in that exchange. But every one of us has a business to a vendor, a hairdresser, a handyman that we are so loyal to because the trust they've built up, because of, the emotional equity they've created that, mine is my handyman. His name's Hoop. Brian Hooper. So if we were neighbors and you're like, oh, I got to get my basement finished or plumbing or something, you got to use Hoop. And, everyone's like, well, what's a Hoop? Oh, Brian Hooper is the greatest guy. I've used him for over 30 years. He doesn't work for me. He's his own carpenter. But this guy is amazing, and he just, it just does the work, and it's clean, it's better. He comes when he says. If you need him today, he'll be there today. If he has to get a third party, that's outside of his expertise, that person will be great, and he'll stand back. He won't say, oh, well, you got to call, that electrician. That wasn't me. No, Brian will take care of it. But whenever I recommend him, people will say, okay, well, how much does he charge? Because my handyman charges, $110 an hour. And that's where I'm embarrassed to say, Roy, I have no idea. I don't know if he charges 90 or 150, but I don't care. I can go call my assistant, have her pull up the last invoice, but I don't care what he is. He saves me money, peace of mind, done well. I would never out price shop him because he's that good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. So it's not just like this unlimited license to raise your fee, but it's saying, you're so good that they're not price shopping you. You're not going to lose because of price. It's just like whatever it is, it's worth it. Like that is super powerful. And I think, that's probably just a reality of the world today because of social media and the internet. It's like, there's a lot of people who talk about customer experience and personal branding and discipline and leadership and all these different things. But it's like, are you creating a bond and that relationship and that trust so that people go, I don't care, John is my guy. He's been proven so consistent for so long, so quality that it's like, get me John DiJulius. It's not go shop and get me 3 bids. They're saying, get me John DiJulius, get me his team. So I love that, man. You've done a great job of that. You certainly are, that person for me and for any companies that we ever work with where that question will come up. And I appreciate you sharing your story and we just wish you all the best, my friend.
Thank you. And, listen, it's a great journey. I can't believe, the career I have. I get paid to do what I love. Like, it's crazy. So, anyone thinking about it, anyone, going after it, they're in the right hands with you. And Rory, it's humbling. I've learned so much from you, and you're a good 20 plus years younger than me. But man, where you were at before you were even 30 was like, way, way before most people do it in a career in this industry. So thank you.
Thanks, brother.